I used to spend so much time worrying about whether I was being a good friend, whether I was keeping up appearances, and making enough effort to stay connected with people I'd known for decades. But something inside me shifted after I turned 70. I stopped visiting people. Just like that. No dramatic goodbye. No big decision. I just quietly let go, and I've never looked back. Now, that might sound cold or sad to some, but let me tell you something. It was one of the most freeing and honest choices I've ever made. And if you've ever felt drained after social visits or pressured to maintain relationships that no longer bring peace or joy, then keep listening, because you're not alone and this message might just change the way you look at your later years. In this video, I'll share the 6 honest reasons I chose to step away from social obligations after 70, and why it might be the best thing you ever do for your emotional health and personal peace. You'll discover how solitude can be healing, how not all relationships are meant to be lifelong, and how growing older gives us the right to choose peace over performance. If that speaks to you, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and thank you for helping us bring more truth and heart to people who need it most. By watching this video, you'll gain clarity, courage, and comfort in choosing the life that feels right for you, not the one others expect. You'll understand how your emotional energy is just as precious as your time, and how protecting your well-being might mean letting go of some very old habit. Now let's dive in, because what I'm about to share might echo feelings you've quietly carried for years. The first honest reason I stopped visiting people after 70 is because I realized I was always the one making the effort. Always the one calling. Always the one driving out. Always the one initiating. And slowly, I began to notice that if I didn't reach out, nothing happened. Days passed, then weeks. I used to blame myself. Maybe I'd done something wrong, maybe they were busy. But then it hit me. If a relationship requires one person to carry the entire weight of keeping it alive, it's not a mutual relationship. It's emotional labor. And after 70, when your energy is more limited and precious, you start to see that you've been overextending yourself in ways that don't serve you anymore. I stopped chasing people. I stopped filling in the gaps. And it felt like a burden had been lifted. The second reason is a little deeper. It's that I grew tired of shallow conversations. You know the kind. The polite chatter about weather, the obligatory updates about distant relatives, the forced smiles. There comes a point when your soul craves more than surface-level noise. After living decades of life, love, loss, mistakes, and lessons, I no longer wanted to sit around discussing TV shows or gossip. I wanted authenticity, real conversations, vulnerability. And sadly, many of the people I used to visit weren't comfortable going there. They weren't ready to speak from the heart or listen without judgment. And I stopped pretending I was okay with that. I started choosing silence over small talk, and in that silence, I found more connection with myself than in any of those meaningless visits. Third, and this one might surprise some people, I began valuing my own space more than ever before. As we age, our home becomes more than just a place. It becomes a sanctuary, a space that holds our memories, our comforts, our routines. I no longer felt like packing up and leaving my peaceful corner of the world just to sit in someone else's living room and feel out of place. And honestly, some visits left me feeling more lonely than before I arrived. Why put yourself through that? Why interrupt your own peace for the sake of formality or guilt? The older I got, the more sacred my home became. I started saying no to visits, not out of bitterness, but out of deep respect for my own emotional comfort. I learned to treasure my mornings, my quiet evenings, my little rituals. I didn't need to go out to feel alive, I just needed to be present in my own space. The fourth reason is probably something most older adults can relate to. I stopped feeling like I had to explain myself. There's a quiet pressure that comes with aging, a feeling that you need to prove you're still social, still capable, still with it. Visiting people felt like part of that performance. Dressing up, making conversation, keeping energy up even when I didn't feel like it. It was exhausting. And somewhere around 70, I realized I didn't owe anyone an explanation. I didn't need to apologize for slowing down. I didn't need to prove I was okay by showing up to every gathering. My presence is no longer currency. My absence is not rejection. I gave myself permission to just be. And that was a huge step toward inner peace. The fifth reason might sting a little for some folks, but I'm going to be honest because I wish someone had said this to me earlier. Some people I used to visit made me feel worse about myself. Not intentionally, maybe, but there were subtle jabs, passive comments, the kind of energy that drains you instead of filling you. I'd leave those visits replaying what was said, questioning my choices, feeling unseen. And eventually I asked myself, why am I voluntarily spending time in places that chip away at my confidence or peace? Just because someone's known you a long time doesn't mean they treat you well. And just because they're family or lifelong friends doesn't mean they're entitled to your presence. I stopped visiting the people who made me feel small, and that one decision gave me back years of self-respect. And finally, the sixth reason, I began to realize that life is short, but the time I have left can still be wide and full if I choose it. I stopped visiting others not out of spite or isolation, but because I wanted to live my days with more intention. Instead of sitting in someone else's home listening to conversations I didn't enjoy, I started walking alone in nature. I picked up old hobbies I had shelved. I began talking to strangers in parks, at markets, short, genuine interactions that lifted my spirit more than forced catch-ups ever did. I journaled. I watched the sky. I learned new things online. I spent time with people who made me feel alive, not obligated. My world didn't shrink when I stopped visiting people. It expanded in ways I never expected. Now, I know some will say, but human connection is everything. And I agree. But connection isn't the same as obligation. Love doesn't always mean proximity. And peace sometimes means walking away from what no longer fits. I've had more authentic moments with myself, and even strangers, in the past few years than I had in decades of routine visit. I began to redefine what connection meant to me. It's not about showing up physically. It's about feeling seen, heard, and valued. And sometimes the only place you'll find that is within yourself. You see, after 70, we're no longer chasing careers, raising children, or proving anything to anyone. This is the season to reclaim your emotional space, to protect your joy like it's gold. Because it is. You've spent a lifetime giving, your time, your love, your energy. Now is the time to receive, to choose who gets access to you, to choose what fills your soul, to say no without guilt. If visiting people no longer brings you peace, you are allowed to stop. You are allowed to choose a quiet morning with tea and birdsong over a noisy house filled with unspoken tension. You are allowed to let go of relationships that no longer nourish you. And you are allowed to thrive in solitude. If you're still with me, if any of this touched something in you, then maybe you've already felt what I felt. That quiet ache, that tug toward solitude, that craving for authenticity. Let me tell you, it's not selfish. It's wise. It's protective. And it's deeply necessary. Life after 70 isn't about fading away into silence. It's about turning the volume up on what really matters. On joy, on ease, on peace, on the things that make your heart feel steady and your mind feel clear. So no, I don't visit people anymore. I don't chase, I don't pretend, I don't perform. And in that choice, I've never felt more free. I've found new ways to connect, to grow, to love, from a distance, from within, from a place that's honest. And maybe that's the message here. That in our later years, we're not losing connection, we're finally finding the kind that counts. Quiet, real, unforced. So if you're feeling what I felt, give yourself permission to change the way you live. To let go of what doesn't feel right anymore. To honor what your soul is asking for. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to defend it. Just live it. You've earned the right to choose peace. And peace, my friend, is worth everything.